Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to chat mental health with amazing humans. For this episode, I'm so happy to welcome Emma to the conversation. Welcome, Emma.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, great to see you. So as always, I'll do a very brief introduction to Emma and how I know her, and then I'll let you do your full proper introduction, please, for the people that are listening, watching. So Emma and I met, back in 2018, it would be now. Mental health first aid is our sort of passion. We were delivering mental health first aid, and you were one of the co-deliveries that I had to do to qualify. So I learned my trade from you. So for all those people that are listening that have trained with me, Emma was the person that stood me well for the future when it came to a mental health first aid. We stayed in touch. Emma moved shores, so you're not in England anymore. I'll let you
I
tell everybody where
am,
you are.
yeah, I am well, today it is sunny. We've had a lot of rain, but I'm in Sydney, so on the other side of the world. Yes.
So you're my first conversation today with Australia. So welcome Australia to this conversation of mental health as well. I know there's lots going on in Australia with mental health and support and so on. But Emma, do your introduction. It's lovely to see you. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you.
Well, first, congratulations, Matt. It is, what is it, 2 o'clock in the morning to you? I'm just wondering where your three in the morning, 2 in the afternoon for me. And I'm just wondering where your pajamas are.
They're firmly away. They're not going to be touched until tomorrow or till later today.
You're doing very well. You're doing very well. So I'm Emma Saccomani, and I co-founded Minds That Work. And I co-founded it with the wonderful Victoria Brookbank, who you've met as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And we actually got the idea because we were both running our own separate businesses, and we got the idea at Surbiton bus stop just before I went over to Australia to support one another. And so we support businesses to take the first steps to building a mentally healthy workplace. Similar space to you, I guess. And one of our USPs, because my background is learning and development, so we're very much all about really targeting the learning and doing quite specific role-specific training. So leaders having leadership training, managers training, frontline teams, ensuring that they understand interacting with customers and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's really good to be here. And well, I guess, where do we get started? I was just going to say, I listened to Stuart, who did such an articulate story about his support for his wife who has MS. And originally I was going to just do like let's just go on a journey of discovery together, Matt, because we've got so much we could talk about. And then I thought that's then going to go all over the place, isn't it? But do you remember, I'll give a little bit of structure to this in a moment, but in fact, we first met, I did my very, very, very first lunch and learn at Happyful.
Yes, you did.
With the wonderful Memia team, through an initiative through my volunteering at mental health charity in Woking.
I do remember.
And yeah, so it's weird. And then I think we probably link. I don't know, you popped up on LinkedIn. I saw you were doing mental health first aid, and that's how we then
thank you for reminding me of that.
Together,
that was before. You're absolutely right.
It was a long time
came in
ago.
and we were talking, because I was talking about my role as Samaritans and things like that as well. I think we were having those.
Exactly.
Wow, your memory's much better than mine. I guess I've got 3 a.m. memories, so I'll forgive myself for that. But incredible. But you are working with Victoria on different initiatives anyway, aren't you? With your work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So should we get into the question? The big question that I'm asking everybody on these. You've probably seen.
Go on then.
Your journey with mental health.
My journey with mental health. Well, I'm gonna talk about 3 key influences that kind of got me to where I am. Okay. I'm going to talk about 3 key stages within the sort of personal side to the mental health journey. And then, because this is thanks to Stuart, it made me think a little bit. Okay. I've got 3 gems of wisdom around recovery and resilience as well. So it's kind of a bit of a theme with number 3. So yeah, thinking of my 3 influences. So like you, have come from the corporate world, and interestingly, we've got this connection around the travel industry, haven't we?
Yeah, we do.
So, and you might have forgotten that at 3 a.m. as well.
No, this was something to do with Eurostar.
Yeah, so I used to work I worked 23 years for Eurostar, and funny enough, an early part of my career, I went around training travel agents. So I visited all sorts of travel departments and could well have come across where you worked. So there we go. Yeah, so that gave me a real, so I went through it in my corporate career, it went through 5 restructures. I guess I saw the best and the worst of the corporate world. Went through, I had probably 20 managers, some which brought out the best in me, some which maybe didn't. And so that's kind of been a real influence in the kind of work that I do. And my second hat, so a bit like you and your volunteering with the Amazing Samaritans. So sort of when we met, I just started volunteering for the mental health charity in Woking. So Corner House, now part of Mind in Woking. And I also became a trustee there. And it's fascinating because probably, as you know, there's so much complexity around mental health. And, you know, I certainly came across that, and complexity around leadership just with the charity, but also the simplicity. And, you know, what I saw supporting those depression and anxiety support groups, there was a whole range of great services that they offered, was that the power of human connection and the power of listening. So that, you know, that whole side of thing has really influenced the work that I do. And then my third influencer, and I guess it's my biggest hat really, how I got into this whole area, was supporting my daughter. So we're going back a good 7 years ago. And if we think about the whole time to change thing, I mean, it has been going longer than 7 years, but not mainstream at all. So my daughter went through some really shocking stuff. We're talking eating disorder, self-harm, depression that wasn't diagnosed, and a suicide attempt as well. And I was just so naive to it all, incredibly naive to it all. There weren't the campaigns, there wasn't really the support at school at that stage. And it was, you know, when I think about the 3 stages of that journey I went through as a parent, and I'm sure you can really relate to this, that first stage was really just utter shock. And for me, it ended, I guess, life as a parent as I knew it, really. And perhaps you had more connection with around the whole mental health area than I did. But it for me, it was utterly shocking. And it was like I was in this whole, you know, that whole physical stage of anxiety where you're living and breathing everything, and go to bed at night, would wake up in the night and be at that real stage where stomach aches and losing weight, and that whole it sort of took over our whole lives, if you like. And I suppose one of my I guess why I do a lot of what I do is, if only I'd known what I know now, some of those learnings, some of the things like don't rely necessarily on the statutory health services. You know, I've learned now what the role is, providing hope, practical support, that kind of thing. And interestingly, so often in the space we work in, we talk about work being part of the problem, don't we? You know, work creating extra stress for some people, toxic workplaces, that kind of thing. But you and I both know work can also be part of the solution. And I know for me at that time, I was working at Eurostar, and just no one had training there. Mental health first aid, that wasn't a thing that had happened there. But just my manager and just a couple of people I could be myself with. And you know, my manager, I'd have a one-to-one. She'd say, "Oh God, what's been going on at home now?" And I was really high functioning because that was my place of sanity. That was the place where I could spend a whole day without feeling the shock of what was going on at home. And I think that's where, you know, we want to upskill workplaces to understand that. And I was just thinking about Stuart and that whole caring. You know, sometimes people go into work and that really is their place of safety, if you like. And so that was that first phase, if you like, which probably went on for probably 9 months. I mean, who knows, but it was pretty intense. And for me, my second phase was the acceptance phase. Now, for me, anything I go through now, any difficulties I go through, I'm able now just move straight into acceptance, and it's incredibly powerful.
Mm.
But at that time, it took me a long time to get there, that you can't control everything, you can't fix everything, but what you can do, you can explore, you can do your best. And then it was probably then that I started to think, you know what, I need to start looking after myself, and then I'm going to be a much more relaxed more chilled parent, because, you know, I don't know about you, but the fear is incredibly intense, and this wanting to control things that aren't in your control can make you try to micromanage, just as a lot of managers who are under stress start micromanaging. And, you know, with all the managers I've had, I know the ones that have micromanaged me, it's been incredibly unhealthy. So that was my second phase, I suppose, that acceptance. And then the third phase, which is I was probably going through the two of those, sort of going from the acceptance to the third phase of resilience and growth, when I met you, setting up my business. So I got the opportunity, which I wasn't even looking for, to take that step and take redundancy and start my own business. But I was really, really ready. And I have to thank my husband for giving me a kick up the backside to do that, because I'm one of those tortoises. I was really enjoying my work, working in a great learning and development people team department, really loved what I did. And but then just realized, wow, I could actually make a difference. And that phase of sucking up the learnings and thinking, wow, I could share some of those learnings, that whole growth stage, and I could give something back, and I could really follow my passion and do something scary, but actually something that is really going to be incredible. So yeah, that's that whole
And now you're in Australia.
And that, oh yeah, that's another. So do you know, it is quite amazing, really, because if someone had said to me, I don't know, 8 years ago, you'd be running your own business, you'd be on the other side of the world, you'd be wondering when you're next going to see your daughters, which is, you know, that's tough. And yet also you'd be incredibly proud how they are growing themselves and building that resilience as well. You know, yeah, I'm not one for five. You know, when people interview you and they say, what's your 5-year plan? That's not really me at all.
Hold on, I'm just taking that question.
Yeah, for a long time, it was just, I think you go through and it's a day at a time, isn't it? But now I guess what's enabled me to survive coming over to the other side of the world as well is knowing, it's just having that courage, isn't it? And knowing that things will be okay, and you don't have to know how everything's going to work out. And that learning outlook, that, okay, something doesn't work, but that's okay, because you're learning, it will lead to something else.
Yeah, it will definitely. And I think that's it, isn't it? You just have to keep on thinking that way. And actually, I'm a big fan of learning things every day and doing that. You know, this well, that's what this is, right? That's what this is about. This is about learning about how other people see the world. And I love this sort of, you know, we all have our own unique perspective on the world, and yet we don't often listen to the other person's perspective because we think we're right. We think we're the ones that know everything. And I'm fascinated with that. You know, obviously with the piece around your daughter, and thank you for sharing that. Really do appreciate that. And you know the experiences that we've been through as a family, and I just want to say publicly on here as well, thank you to you as well, because you did give me a lot of support very early on in those challenging moments and days that we had, which exposed a lot of the challenges around support for mental health, very much so to us. And so for anybody that is listening, that is experiencing anything with their child, know that there is, you know, it is a battle and you do have to fight, but never give up the fight. And there's lots of us out there that are there to, you know, to support you and to listen to the challenges you're going through. Because I think that was something that you, thankfully, you know, you gave me insights and wisdom around your experience.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've ended up, I mean, just to sort of plug, if people do want information, so I have got a LinkedIn article. It was quite therapeutic writing it on, you know, carer tips for if you are supporting a teenager and sort of understanding that whole mental health area. And there's a lot of resources, and it's my one LinkedIn article that I have got my act together, and I have updated it with both Australian resources and UK resources as well. And it would be worth having a little nose, because even the Australian resources, even if you're not based in Australia, there's some really nice generic stuff.
Yeah,
So
brilliant.
definitely have a little look there. And I think that's what I learned. And in terms of who I felt able to talk to at the time about what we were going through, because you have to think it's a very private thing, and you have to think
Yeah,
who do you trust to share this kind of information. And for me, my biggest support came from, I call her my Friday friend, and because at the time I used to have Fridays off from Eurostar,
right.
and she was always there. If I needed to do my food shop, she'd come and do a food shop with me. We'd talk about anything and
Yeah,
everything. She I could have been envious of how things were going with her kids, but it just wasn't like that. And finding someone that has your sense of humor, because I just have quite a dark sense of humor sometimes, and it really helps me.
yeah,
But those, if someone knows you, they can really get what you're going through. And she'd be like, oh, what's the latest story? Just a bit like my old manager. And it just really helped. And
yeah.
you can just be it's about being your authentic self, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to persuade people that being your authentic self is not a bad thing. Take
Yeah.
down the mask, show people who you really
Yeah.
are, explore these thoughts that say, I'm worried, I'm struggling, I need to get
Mm.
some support and some help, and show vulnerability. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating one. Anything else you want to share around your experiences and your learnings and your many conversations, of course, that you have with people talking about mental health?
Goodness me. I'd say we're thinking about the vulnerability side. I think we do need to give it a moment's thought before. It's not about sharing with everything. It's not about sharing all the intimate details. It's about thinking, can I trust this person?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, especially when I talk to workplaces about it, because I do know of people
Mm,
that perhaps have kind of thought, oh, right, I must be open about everything, and perhaps haven't thought it through, and either perhaps not realized how vulnerable they are, which is okay in the right circumstances, but it's about what you share,
yeah.
how you share it. And Susan Calman has a really great book, and it is I've completely forgotten what it is. Oh, Cheer Up, Love. And she's got a brilliant chapter all about this if you're
Right.
thinking of sharing, and some really great tips around that.
Good.
I think that's really important, because I think in this current climate it can be too easy to think, oh right, yes, it is safe to share, and it does depend on the workplace, and does depend on the circumstances,
Yeah.
and time to change. And Beyond Blue have some great resources about, should I share, what are the pros and cons. So it's really
Right.
important people think that through.
Yeah.
And I think so something that really struck me when I was just before I came over here, and I had the most wonderful journey up to Leeds with my daughter, and I was kind of saying goodbye to her, really, take her first big step up to university. And I don't know about you, but it had taken me quite a few years to pluck up the courage to ask her this question. And it was, if I had a magic wand and could take away the pain of the past 6-7 years, would you want me to wave it? And it's not a question I could have ever asked before, because I wouldn't have been ready for the
Yeah.
answer. But I was ready then. And she said, I wouldn't want you to take it away, because then I would have lost all the learnings,
Yep.
and I would have lost a part of who I am now. And to hear then, she talked about how proud she is of me, and I wouldn't be doing what I am doing without the learnings I've had from her.
Yep.
And also, and I think it's about understanding that everybody's so different. So whilst one person might feel really able to share, one team member might feel really able to share, for another team member, it could be like you're infringing their human rights to even ask that question. So, sibling, like your own children can be incredibly different. Your own team
Yeah.
members can be really different, and really respect that privacy, I
Mm,
think is super important. But yeah, so I think it's about that courage. And I think we're all more courageous than we think we are. Um, and we all, I suppose, we contribute and we thrive and add value, not in spite of our adversities, but really because of them. I
yeah.
think it's what helps us grow, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And we need more tolerance and acceptance towards all of those things, definitely. And
Yeah, very much
and
so.
I do. I love that question. I think I might ask that to somebody.
What's
Um, the one that you no, the
yeah,
one that you said to
yeah,
your daughter, you know,
yeah,
I think it's such a relevant point. And I, you know, I think about my experience, personal experience with my mental health and the things that have happened to me, and I wouldn't change them, you know, because I've learned so
no,
much from them, and they're actually the reason why I'm doing what I do now. And
exactly,
would I have ever been
exactly.
on this path if that hadn't happened? No, I don't think I
No,
would. And I think
no.
I'm a believer, you know, whether others do, but I'm a believer that things happen for a reason, that you have to go
Mm,
through. Life throws these things at you, so it challenges you and sees how you react, and hopefully it's a positive reaction to these things. And you know,
yeah.
with our young people and supporting young people,
Mm.
and especially in this world now, you know, it's hard, right? And this
It
is
is really hard. It
yeah,
is hard. And it's about being aware of just the messy reality of life,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
And I was just thinking, I did promise I'd share three recovery gems, didn't I? And
Yeah.
three, have I got time?
Yeah, well, we've got
Just got,
a few more minutes, so
got a
you
few
know
more
we'll
minutes.
go into
Yeah.
those, so you can do those.
Can I
You
do
can do
those?
those
Yeah.
as your pearls of wisdom that you can share with
My
people. Take
pearls of
away.
wisdom that I'm going to share.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm sharing them because they are. So I've got this wonderful professional relationship now with my daughter around mental health. I have got two lovely daughters as well.
Yeah,
So hello to both of them, and
yeah.
love them to bits. But the first one is around recovery, that
Mhm.
whole recovery journey. Recovery is a journey, not a destination. I mean, it's a phrase we use a lot, isn't it, in our
Yep.
training? So these words are from her. And it's so, firstly, it's most important to recognize that throughout recovery, you'll have times in which you feel like you're pretty much back to step one. This is normal and sometimes necessary in order to challenge the progress you've made and putting it into action. The second most important thing about recovery is to not compare yourself to others. And I think in this world of social media, that is so important.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to move on from certain styles of therapy and therapists, because at the end of the day, it's your recovery.
yeah.
So that's pretty profound. She wrote that when she was 18, which I thought was pretty amazing.
No,
And so as well as doing mental health training, I do other topics as well. I do resilience. I've just, funny enough, we were talking about vulnerability. I'm just putting together something on that.
yeah,
But I got three gems on resilience. Before I was running a course, I said to her, okay, what are your tips? You know, I've got mine. What are yours? So knowing that other people have different ways of coping. So I think that's really key, isn't it? We are all different. So,
yeah,
you know, I might want to say, well, this works, but is that going to work for you? You know, it's your recovery,
yeah,
so you've got to try all sorts of things. Again, comparing yourself to others only makes things worse, as everyone reacts differently.
yeah,
So, and you don't have to fit this amazing, strong, resilient persona or the stereotype of a strong, resilient person to be resilient. And I think, again, that whole vulnerability piece, there you
yeah.
go.
Wow, there's your pearls of wisdom, right?
There's my pearls of wisdom.
No, it's fascinating, and I think, and you know, from my perspective, I think it's, you know, it just exposes uniqueness, doesn't it? Everybody's unique, everybody's different in
Yeah,
the way that, you know, we know that with recovery from mental ill health, that
yeah.
not everybody's path is the same, and that's why it is quite a complex area when we break it down into how to recover from these things, because there's many different alternatives available to help. Therapies are different depending on what people are, you know, into, or what are they're able to accept and take on board, I guess. um Emma, we're at the end. We're at the, can you
Already,
believe it? It's
I
sort of,
can't.
we've come to the end of this conversation, and it's starting to, you know,
Look, I
we'll
set my
get,
timer,
you
so there's
did
my
as well. So there you go. See, I knew the timer was going to go off, or your harpist was about to arrive. Listen, I just want to say a huge thank you to you. I really do. You know, you we've stayed in touch.
We have.
You've moved the other side of the world. This beautiful thing about this podcast is I'm talking to people all over the world, and it's just been incredible, and I'm having some amazing conversations. I think I'm back in Australia again in about 20 minutes time.
You
uh,
are, you are. I'm
you
really
know,
looking forward to
and
listening to that.
and
Yeah,
and you know, it's just, I love this. I really do. It's a lovely way to just sit down and chat about stuff, and you know, important stuff, and the mental health conversation, of course, attached to that. But I just want to wish you all the very, very best, Emma. And
thank you. A big
uh,
thank you to you. And we ended on complexity, so let's go back to simplicity and that power of connection. There
there
we
you
go.
go. There you go. Well, that's fine. And if anybody is struggling with anything, if you do
Yeah.
need extra help or support, if you do need somebody to talk to, safe spaces are available. Samaritans is there, obviously, in the UK with 116123 is the telephone number. Always reach out, and in Australia there'll be resources as well. I don't know the number off the top of my head.
It's called Lifeline, and I can't remember. It's on my website, and
Okay.
yeah, just Google Lifeline as well.
Yeah, bad host not doing research.
No,
There we
I
go.
should have had it down here. I think
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry.
Don't worry.
We don't
Yeah,
want to give out
we
wrong
don't want to give.
information.
No. It's called Lifeline,
No,
but
it's
absolutely,
Lifeline, 24 hours.
yeah.
Yeah.
The reality is there is always somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Always remember that, never sit there in silence. Suffering in silence is something we want to get away from. We want people to feel that they've got somebody they can at least tell their worries and their woes to. So Emma, thank you so much for this. I loved it. Love catching up with you as always. And I want to say goodbye now.
I say goodbye, and take a quick breather and don't fall asleep.
A quick breath.
Set your alarm.
Yes. Yeah.